Good evening. Good evening. It is 5 p.m. and we are live for Who's Opinion with Who's Opinion Is It Anyway. We have a special guest with us. I think this is the first time in history the three of us have ever been on the show at the same time.
That's right.
That's about right.
How are you,
Yes.
Doing good, doing good. We got Mike on board.
Mike, you are finally in the studio, technically, at the same time that I am.
Absolutely. Having a ball. Brother Vic, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right, man. How about yourself? How about both of you?
Well, you know, now I don't have to hog the mic now with you.
Oh, man.
You know what, though? Hey, Mike, I think I'm excited, though. Vic is really standing in solidarity with his president. You see, he's orange over there.
Oh, here we go.
I think he's doing it in protest.
He's what?
He's standing in solidarity with his president. He's got the orange logo.
Right.
Hey, Candice, you know, that's his lava light. I don't know about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. He's at home, so now he's golden. I forgot.
Hey, that's right.
Right.
A screwing bulb at the top too. You until the lights go off.
No doubt.
You don't know that about basement parties, Vic.
That's the black light right there.
The
basement party back in the day.
Couldn't have no basement party. I was chilling in the basement party.
Boy, I tell
ya. Hey, you millennials we're kind of deprived. Y'all living the regular life y'all live now. We at least could go outside back in the day.
No doubt.
Now we live in a millennial life.
That's right.
First of all, that's not the millennial life. We grew up outside playing curb and everything else. You keep getting the generations wrong.
Yeah. Curb was the game we played when the street lights came on. Otherwise, we was way away from curb.
I just want you to know you keep getting your generations wrong.
What's that?
But no. It's truly a pleasure to have both of you at the same time on the show because, like I said, we've never done this before in the 2 years that we've been running. So it'll be interesting to see how this lovely experiment works.
All right.
Especially with Vic being such the strong Trump supporter that
here we go.
Well, so, Mr. Why is she calling you a Trump supporter?
Her joke's in already, right? We have an ongoing joke, Mike. There's an ongoing joke between me and Candice. Candice calls me the Trump supporter. She says I'm a Republican, and I call her a socialist. She's in mourning right now because her candidate dropped out of the race.
That hurt.
You see she wearing black. You see, wait a minute. I see you wearing black too, Mike. Y'all in
Yeah.
I can assure you, I'm all good.
Yeah. Well. Look. Hey, look. I guess we go with the person we want, right? So I wanted.
I think that
Kamala Harris, Minister, Brother Geek, who was your candidate at first? When we first started off, who was your candidate?
Wow, to be honest with you, actually, I think that I eventually chose Bernie. To be honest with you, eventually.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was Kamala Harris from jump, from the beginning, and it looks like Joe may have to pick her as VP, unless he's picking Governor Whitmer from Michigan.
You think so?
I was going to say Governor Whitmer.
That lady.
The way Governor Whitmer's been handling this crisis, though, it's a strong possibility. It's a strong possibility.
Okay.
She's been handling.
She's vying for the job.
She's been handling the crisis very well here in Michigan. And of course, as with any leader, there are some people who have, contrary opinions or whatever. But I think even from her stay in place order, which actually was just expanded yesterday. So before the executive order, which was 2021, at first it was that, we were allowed to travel and we can go to different residences and move around a little bit, but it's been expanded because we've not quite managed to flatten the curve just yet. We're still going up. And so a way to kind of help combat that and help people to stay in place here in Michigan, what she's done is now Executive Order 2020-42. We've after today, so after April 10th, we won't be able to do in-home, residence to residence travel. She would prefer us not to do that to help kind of stop the spread of the virus. Now, what that means is, though, you can still go if you're taking care of an elderly parent or a disabled person or a sick loved one, or if you're taking care of a pet for someone, you will still be permitted to do that. But other than that, we've been asked to stay in our own homes as much as possible. But we can still go outside as long as we stay 6 feet apart from people that do not live inside the home with us. So you can still go and get some exercise, get a bike ride going. For those of you who still live by the water, you can still kayak and canoe. So that we are still able to go to the grocery stores, but in that order, that changed a bit too. So all the grocery stores now have to maintain a certain occupancy level, and that number includes the employees. So it's a certain amount of number per 1,000 square feet. And some of the stores had actually already started to do that. I've gone to a couple of grocery stores where they already had like little feet on the floor to show you when you're 6 feet apart from someone. And
stay in the square.
Exactly. And a lot of them have also changed it to where there's only one entry point to get into the store. So they'll be able to do a little bit of crowd control should they find themselves reaching that occupancy level. So there's just a couple of things that we changed here in Michigan.
Well, like I said, she's on it. She even started that African American task force. What is that?
Okay.
Yes, and that's another thing that happened here in Michigan. So, I actually appreciate this because what she's doing is recognizing the health disparities and the way that this coronavirus is hitting the African American community. So we now have a Michigan coronavirus task force aimed specifically at addressing the virus in the African American community, because we make up about 14% of the state of Michigan, but we're 33% of the cases of coronavirus and 40% of the deaths. So, and that task force is being headed up by our Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist II. And they'll start to meet this week, and the people that'll be a part of that task force, you have elected officials from your hardest hit communities, your hardest impacted communities, and as well as some health officials from those communities as well, to kind of see what we can do to kind of flatten the curve there. So that, I think that is exciting. But one of the things that I do want to point out is that Governor Whitmer was actually already doing some things to address disparities that were happening in the state of Michigan. She'd actually started doing stuff back in October. Addressing the employment disparities and addressing the healthcare disparities. So this is kind of like just another step to do that, just in dealing with the virus. But one of the things that we were told that we could look forward to is that we're trying to see how we can continue to address the disparities even after the virus crisis is over.
So I think you're raising some great points there. But I would like to see, where is this going to go, right? As far as the task force is concerned, if there's anything that this virus has done, is that it has really shown the disparities that exist in this country that's been in existence for quite some time, right?
That's right. We've been talking about it for a while. This is nothing new for us.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about that, right?
Yeah. And look, if you go to Louisiana, and 2/3 of the 500 deaths in Louisiana have been African Americans. Michigan has the third highest rate of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, in New York right now, we probably we only, I think we're 20% of the population in New York City, and even in the state, we're probably less. But we are, I think, close to 30% of the deaths. And in New York, they're getting bodies that are piling up so fast. The unclaimed bodies, they are put in mass graves at the city cemetery.
No, and then also, I don't know if you saw today that now they're going to use some of the public parks in New York. They're going to make some temporary graveyards there, because that's the level. That's the volume that they've been experiencing fatalities as a result of the virus.
These are temporary graveyards, you say?
Yeah, temporary, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and when you think about it, what they're having is people aren't claiming bodies. So if Auntie passed away, you don't have a job to pay for a funeral. Who's going to pick up the body? So people who don't have money, they don't have a way to even bury their loved ones, and you can't see your loved ones. So do you know if they passed away? You don't know what's happening. If you got an auntie kind of stays by herself, you don't know what her situation is. I've got a friend of mine who told me about this today. They've got family members, a grandfather and a grandmother passed away. The son is a police officer in Milwaukee. He lives in the same community, but he can't go see them. He just got out of being sick himself. So, but he can't take care of their business. So they're going to just sit at the funeral home, the bodies are, until he can get well enough to get out and do something. He can't come from Flint, Michigan and drive up there because he's got some of the same issues. Him and his wife, this is his wife's family. He can't drive to Milwaukee or anything like that. We got kind of restrictions on whether you can drive or not. We don't know what that means, right? Can you even drive out of town?
So if it's not, if you're not going out of town because you live there, then no.
Right. So he can't drive out of town to go see his family. His wife has she's ill herself, so she can't really even go there and visit the family members because they're sick with COVID-19.
Right.
Wow.
And again, but like you said, this virus has shown a lot of gaps and a lot of where we fall short in our systems here in America. So I think, I hope that they're taking the opportunity, and I understand that, yes, right now everyone's scrambling because this is unprecedented. It's not something we've dealt with before, but I hope that they're also taking some time thinking about the path forward. Thinking of how do you fill in these gaps and how do you stop some of these inconsistencies as we move beyond the coronavirus. Because here in Flint, one of the things we realize is we have a very high homeless population. And one of the things that we've seen is it's been kind of difficult to figure out who is where, what, you know, what needs they have and what to do with that. And again, there's a lot of money and funding that needs to be placed into helping people who are experiencing homelessness, because we only have so many shelters, and a lot of times those are at capacity. So there are a lot of things we need to look at moving forward.
Well, the sheriff was on yesterday with the mayor, Sheriff Swanson, and he mentioned that they were trying to put together a deal for Holiday Inn to accept some of the homeless. Well, that deal fell through, because Holiday Inn invoked their particular rights under their jurisdiction of the Holiday Inn code, you know, saying, no, we can't really do that. So you have all these businesses who claim to be wanting to help or claim to be able to help, but they're only helping in certain spaces. And if we've got, we don't have a president who's showing leadership, who won't let the funds come down into the community, what are we really going to have long term? Businesses being hurt, people being hurt, the homeless being on the streets, infecting more people.
True.
And I want to say hello to Aaron, who has joined us over on YouTube. I'm not sure if anybody is watching over on Facebook. They do have to click the link, but Aaron, we do see you watching. And we did see that you said the first arrest will send shockwaves around the world. Please feel free to elaborate on that. And Aaron, we welcome you to join the conversation fully with us. And thank you for joining us. But Mike, I think that you have a very good point there, where you said that the leadership coming from the top is absolutely failing. Absolutely failing. Anytime you have a president who says, you know, you have to go and you compete with one another for personal protective equipment, for ventilators and all that thing, all of those things.
Right.
It's like whoever makes the best bid wins. Excuse me. And no, I'm not coughing because of Corona. I was choking up.
We're over here, huh?
I was talking too quickly, cough.
Oh, hey, that goes to show millennials can get it, y'all.
There you go. There you go.
Not only that, even the federal government then jumping in and taking over some of the equipment and some of the ventilators, because obviously if a vendor has the opportunity to sell to a state or sell to the United States, the president, they're going to sell to, the federal government over the state government. And so they've been stockpiling some things. And one of the statements that was made by the president's son-in-law was, these are our supplies and we're not just going to pass out our supplies, which is, it's crazy, because it's like, first of all, who else would you give your supplies to? Those, it's like if anything, you should be getting supplies and sending them to the hardest hit areas that are not able to get personal protective equipment and all the other stuff that they need so severely. So it's just very interesting that at a time like this, the top leadership would choose to hoard life-saving equipment.
Well, listen, this is the danger of electing a so-called businessman as your bean counter, as your person who's in charge of your leadership. See, they're looking at it as business. This is our stuff, and you got to get your stuff from me, and you got to pay me a particular amount. If I'm a businessman, that's all I care about is the bottom line for me. I don't care about you. I only care about me.
Here in Michigan, which is why it was very interesting that he was able to turn Michigan red, was because here in Michigan, we learned a very hard lesson about having a businessman be in charge of making decisions that you need to have for the people about. I mean, Flint alone learned a very hard lesson about having a businessman making decisions.
That's right.
And so that's why it was very interesting that Michigan, was red. But hey, it's one of those things that now it's kind of like you hope that people are paying attention and that they are really focusing on the fact that there's no way that you can have a standalone issue in this country. And what I mean by that is whatever affects one area will eventually get to your area and start affecting you. Do not think that you will find yourself free of whatever ills or things that happen here in the country. That you might be able to stay coming to you, but it will eventually get to you. And so I think the best thing that you can do. Go ahead.
Well, this is one of the issues we face now. So the scourge was Mexican or immigrants, right? And now we find out, well, if an immigrant is cooking your food and serving you, he could have COVID-19 and your rich behind could get infected by it. So it's good to give immigrants health care, right? We should have a universal health care for everybody so that people can go to the hospital and they won't have to be scared. But if you're conducting ICE raids in the midst of this virus, people are scared to go out. People are scared to go to the hospital. So they stay at home or they go to work because it's going to lose their job. And now they're sick at work or on the job.
Right. And you do have a lot of that. And that was one of the things, another executive order that Governor Whitmer actually put in place here in Michigan was the fact that you cannot retaliate against someone who cannot come in because they are sick. You cannot fire them. You cannot discipline them, or because they have to care for a loved one who lives directly with them who are sick. And so I think that would be a good thing to kind of implement across the country of this is tough. These are very tough times. And one of the things that it is shining a light on is that we have a lot of people that live in this country that care for elders, that care for children. You have grandparents that are caring for children, great grandparents caring for great grandchildren. There are a lot of different family structures in this country. And one of the things that this virus has forced us to do is to take a look at those different family structures and to see how moving forward beyond this, we can make life livable for them, because we get an opportunity to see now that most people are just literally barely making it. And I think that this virus has highlighted that.
But I think this virus also shows the political division that exists in America as well. down party lines in terms of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, because you still have some Republican governors like in Mississippi, in Florida, and other particular states that are following the lead of Trump with regard to opening up business again and so forth. And still Trump is talking about opening up America back for business by April 30th. He really wanted to do it this weekend per Easter, right? So it's amazing the role that social location, and what I mean by social location is the manner in which the place that we live, the lives that we live, impacts our worldview. And we see this split right down the middle, right? What is it going to take for people in America to really wake up and see this thing for what it is, right?
Well, I think it's even more
beyond being a Republican and beyond being a Democrat, man.
That's right. I agree with you.
Hold on. Let's try being a human being first. How about that? Right? Over and above our party affiliation. How about that?
So, Vic, what you're saying is let's try being a good biosphere project for once in our lives. Let's try it.
Well,
but it's
hard. What Trump is trying to do, though, and I'll make this last point. This is what Trump is trying to do. What he's trying to do is reward his friends while punishing his political enemies, and he's going to withhold these supplies so that he can be perceived as a hero. You
better know that that's what he's trying to do, because did he not make the statement, if these governors want something from me, they need to start being nice to me?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. You know, and so in Wisconsin, we just talk about, well, let me start with here first. So they've rounded the numbers up to 60,000 deaths now. And so Trump is saying, well, we keep it under 100,000. We've done a great job. That was his statement. If we keep it under 100,000, we've done a great job. So just imagine where we should be with other countries with maybe a lower amount of deaths. Any death is too much, but a much lower amount of deaths. But he's already got their mind state going where the 100,000 is okay. And so we get to 60,000, which is unbelievably the worst tragedy we've seen in our lifetimes for sure. Then, I say that's all right. That's fine. So he'll go into the election with all these people saying, he was our savior. He helped us. He beat the curve.
Let me tell you something. Because even as recent as yesterday, there were people on Facebook still going hard for him, still defending him, still saying who lied to him, who being the World Health Organization, saying that Dr. Fauci, they're trying to mislead him. And I kid you not.
Well, I mean, who knows what the World Health Organization does? So you can always label them as the boogeyman.
Exactly.
He's good, and the leader of it now is a person of color. So you can always label the person of color as a boogeyman. And if he's got a funny name that sounds a little Mexican or sounds a little different than a traditional WASP name, then you can label him or her the boogeyman. And so but here's another danger we have in the making too. When he says something crazy, like talking about this hydrochloride or this, they try to make it right, even though it's wrong. They'll make whatever he says right as something good, even though it may be a misstep, a stumble, or an outright lie. The lie becomes the truth, and they'll twist themselves into the space of making the lie the truth. That is our biggest danger right there. That the 60,000 lives is great. It's a win.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
But no, and then even with, like you said, with this medication that's not been FDA approved, not been properly tested, you even have Dr. Fauci not willing to tell people to take that medication. It even says that people run the risk of heart failure. Not only that, but then you got to think about the fact that the medicine that he's touting as this big coronavirus health thing, you've got to think about the fact that we do know that it does work for people who have lupus and other inflammatory issues. And so we're taking medicine from them, and it's hard for them to get. We know that this works for them to go and experiment on people that we have no proof that it's going to work on. And then not only that, but in some people it says that it could cause heart failure. It could cause some heart issues. And it's like, why are you so willing to gamble with people's lives? But then when you do some further research, he's invested in this drug.
He owns stock.
Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so.
He owns stock. He owns stock. Yes, he owns stock in the company.
amazing,
but then they'll twist it and say it's part of the deep state. So they're saying they got a cure, but they won't let you have it. So now the deep state won't let you have something that is an elixir that the deep state and the rest of the liberals don't really want you to have. Forget regulations, forget FDA approvals, forget all that.
Hey, Michael, can I get you to put your headphones back in?
Right?
Can I get you to put your headphones back in for me?
Okay.
You just wanted to be on camera with us. Hey, Paul.
Right.
Aaron is talking. Aaron, who has joined us on YouTube, he is talking right now. He did say that Aaron Phelps, he said it's been prescribed over 1 million doses and that Trump has less than 1,500 in stock, and it cures all bloodborne illnesses. Aaron, we don't have any FDA proof that it cures all bloodborne illnesses. There's no proof of that. None.
Candice, you used the optimal word just a couple of minutes ago, and that word was experimentation. What is this that I'm hearing out of Detroit, whereby people are suggesting that they're trying to use people in Detroit as guinea pigs?
So actually, and what I think they're going to go forward with it because I believe Mayor Duggan, he did comment on that recently. And what's going to happen is they want to use it. Now, keep in mind, you have a large amount of healthcare professionals that have been infected by the coronavirus already. What they want to do is to see if they can be used as a preventative measure. So they want to be able to give it to some healthcare professionals to see if it can prevent them from getting a disease. And keep in mind, these are frontline workers who come in contact with the disease, and they want to see if it'll work to prevent them from getting the disease. This is the thing, though. Wow. Again, when you do something that's untested, and you have those people that are frontline workers, and you need them because you already have a high amount of them getting sick, is that a gamble you want to take?
That's right.
That's really
dangerous.
Is that something that you really want to do? And then not only that, say that this medication, because it's also been found that it doesn't, as with any medication, some people have different side effects from it. So say they take it and they don't get the virus, but then the medicine makes them sick in another way because it has some sort of poor interaction with them. Then there you go again, is now not only are you out of a healthcare worker, but now you have another person on the healthcare system, that worker themselves. Wow. And that's if they don't die.
Wow.
Yeah. But the deep state is going to provide you with this thing. So and you know, another piece of this with I really have a problem with is when the president is still putting his son in charge. I mean, do these right wingers think this is okay? Do they really think his son is an expert now? He's an expert in Saudi Arabia, an expert in Europe, and an expert on Russian relations. And you know, Vladimir Putin sent over a plane full of stuff for us. You know that, right? Did you hear about that?
I did see that Russia sent over.
He's been on the phone with Vladimir Putin and Gerald. What's his name? Gerald? The son? What's his son's name?
Jared Kushner.
Yeah, Kushner. Yeah. He's been on the phone with Kushner, and Kushner and Putin and Trump have had a situation where they sent over supplies. We get supplies from the Russians, so Vladimir Putin can go home and say, "Hey, look what I'm doing for these dumb Americans, for these poor Americans. I'm helping America out." And Trump is saying, "Yeah, hey, come on over here, do a great thing for us. Isn't it wonderful that Putin is sending us supplies because we have a wonderful, great relationship?" And this is propaganda on both ends.
and so Aaron is commenting. He said, "Yes, there is. Just because you do not know does not make you right. Look up ingredients in Schweppes tonic water. Can you paste your source here?" is what Spectacle TV asked him. And he said, "Don't be lazy. Stop believing what you see on TV." Aaron, I can assure you I'm far from lazy, and that TV does not dictate anything that I'm saying to you today. Research.
Yeah, and well, let me talk about this too. And I'm not saying the FDA is always right or the EPA is always right, but studying and evidence means something. And we're acting like it doesn't mean something.
Absolutely.
You know, so Republicans, and I'm not going to talk about it here, and I don't know what situation he's from, but the same people say the regulations over in China are needed, and these sweatshops and where with animals.
Good point.
When we say people here and say we don't need regulations.
Good point.
Right? You can't have it both ways.
True.
You got to listen to regulations, and we should be able to put laws in place to make sure those regulations are followed, so we know who's dying from this and who's not going to die from this. But you talk about being guinea pigs. This is nothing new for us. They are testing those drugs right now on people that are in prison.
Right.
They're testing it right now. Yes.
You've been hearing about that,
testing right now.
You've been hearing
we're volunteering to be tested because everybody's scared, and so they want to be tested.
No, so listen,
wow.
they sent a large
other countries have tested places that we should have been using their results, but we won't do that because we want to make sure we line the pockets.
They sent a large supply of the pills to prison, actually, Vic. So that's what he's referring to.
Oh, really?
And Aaron, if the truth is out there, please feel free to post your source. Aaron is asking Mike for a source to what he's saying, but Aaron, can you post your source for us as well, please? We'd love to see it.
Well, let me say this. I can give you my source. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, who regulates foods, drugs, lots of different things. Listen, why should we be talking about off the top of our head? They can cite studies. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to tell you about that, but there are people who work for the FDA, there are people who work for the CDC who do this stuff for a living. You talk about the wonderful black woman who works for Governor Whitmer. What's the doctor's name? I can't remember her last name. But she's on there every day citing sources. Even here in Flint, Dr. Reynolds and other people like that. I'm a UAW guy. If you want to talk to me about UAW language and things like that, am I a good source for that? Yes, you're right. I'm a basketball guy. I'm going to talk basketball. We talk hoops and stuff like that. But if I want to get information from a lawyer or a doctor or the FDA, why don't you listen to those people who have that information? That's what I'm talking about, Aaron. Now, I'm not saying you're some guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. I think people talk about Dr. Sebi and wonderful things like that. Now, I think it's great. People can go into elixirs and stuff like that. That's wonderful. We've been doing that since grandma's time. No problem. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about people's lives and the situations where you have people who could die from certain things, we have to have the evidence. And let's deal with the evidence. That's all I'm saying.
And Candice, your point about medical professionals, doctors and nurses becoming sick, the worst case scenario is what happens when your frontline people, what happens when your frontline people become ill and sick? What would then happen?
Yes.
What
would happen? Right.
Death, and more death. Death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
And people don't look at it that way.
Yeah.
There are nurses and doctors and people who are scared to go to work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Aaron was saying, do you have a source about the testing drugs on prisoners? Aaron, what he was saying was that the prisons have bought a lot of the medicine that Trump was talking about. All you have to do is look up the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and you can see that information. Aaron, literally Google it right now while you're on here. They have the pills, and so that's what he was referring to when he said that.
They made a purchase order of 60,000 pills. Now, look at it this way, Aaron. If you don't want to believe me, just look at it this way. His friends who work in the Federal Bureau of Prisons wanted to line the pockets of his buddies and friends. So they bought 60,000 pills so he could get a tax break and his buddies and friends could get paid. Can you look at it that way? So this is how this big business works. I go buy something from you, something you already have an investment in.
Aaron,
with government money.
The drug was new. I don't know if you were paying attention to the part where I said we know that the drug works for people who have lupus and arthritis. Yeah. We never once said this drug was new.
For certain illnesses,
I literally said that they use the drug for people who have lupus and arthritis, and that it is proven to work for them, but that it is not proven to work for the coronavirus.
But let me say this, because I'm not gonna play a doctor on this show, but doctors who play doctors who are doctors on TV shows have said that they've tried this drug before. This isn't the first virus we've had. I want everybody to understand that. They've tried this drug before on other viruses. It did not work. So take that to the bank.
Aaron, yeah, it's widely prescribed for people who have lupus and arthritis, Aaron. It's proven to work for them. Your argument of it being widely prescribed does not work for the coronavirus. That doesn't work.
Lupus and arthritis, I got plenty of arthritis. It's not a virus.
But Candice, you also mentioned an important point regarding that as relates to persons who depend upon this medication for lupus, right?
Right.
I've heard cases whereby persons have not been able to get their orders because of what's going on right now.
Correct. Because now you have people that are hoarding pills for something that there's no evidence that it works for. And so now the people that have these illnesses that it actually does work for, they are having a hard time being able to treat their illnesses.
Absolutely.
And then what you're gonna,
it's a domino effect then from a health perspective, right?
Correct.
It's a domino effect.
Yes. And then what you're gonna have is, how the Chinese do it and other people, they'll be making fake drugs. They'll be flooding the market with fake drugs.
Oh wow. That's a perfect storm right there, Mike. That's a perfect storm. You're saying that's happening now, or that could possibly happen if this continues, continues.
Well, I mean, we know how people operate. If there's a way to make $1 and a buck, they'll do it.
True. That's true. Profit over people every day.
And when I'm saying, and Mike, I want to just jump in there because I know you said the Chinese, but that could, any country will do that. Not just them. That could become.
Well, I mentioned other countries. I mentioned the Chinese and others. I said and others.
I just wanted to be clear though. I wanted to reiterate the fact that any country, anybody that's seeking to get ill-gotten gains will gladly make a placebo pill or make a cocktail pill that'll kill you. So you do have to
absolutely. They do it every day. Well, even when we talk about something like fentanyl is a designer drug based upon what it does. So it's the fentanyl that's killing people, not necessarily the oxycodone and other things like that. But they're making these. I mean, we get kind of off the subject, but what I'm saying is, if you've got somebody who's not showing leadership, that's where the problem is. And let me speak to something. I want to help somebody out who's in prison right now. His name is Kwame Kilpatrick. And I saw something on YouTube where Kwame Kilpatrick had a debate in 2005. And in 2005, he mentioned this whole thing about dealing with a pandemic, how we need to approach it and everything like that. And today, people are acting like they don't have this evidence. This is something new. We've known about this. President Obama set things in order. Even President Bush had plans in place. But this nut that we have in the White House ignored all that, fired everybody, and now he's treating himself, and all of his followers are saying he knows what he's talking about. But just a month ago, listen, everybody, we just started closing down things 3 weeks ago. We haven't been at this that long.
True.
3 weeks ago, they were saying it was a hoax. Do not get it twisted. Do not get it twisted. 3 weeks ago, they were saying this is all a hoax. Cut to a week ago, 2 weeks ago, then they're saying we got to close things down. And even now, just a week ago, before the child started closing things down, they weren't even doing it beforehand. So what are we talking about here? But people understand that this president has not shown any leadership. Just 4 days ago, he said that the federal government is a backup, not the front line for what we need when it comes to helping out people. The Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA, should be right in every city. I haven't seen any FEMA trucks here. Maybe they're here. I don't know. But where are they? Remember, at least in Katrina, they was saying, what was it? What was the stuff that was in there in the trailers? At least they had trailers lined with bad material, but we can't even get trailers here to help with the sick. But George Bush didn't send them down to Katrina, and he was looked at as a failure. We can't get them in any city, trailers or anything else, but he's looked at as a success. That's wrong. That's crazy.
Right. And like you said, that we had a pandemic team in place, which the current president removed. He has experts in place, which he chooses to actively ignore. Again, and one of the things that's known is that his son-in-law is running a private for-profit thing, right in step with the public nonprofit thing that the vice president is doing with the governors. And so his son-in-law is running a private for-profit right alongside that inside the White House for their buddies to get money.
Well, they're a bunch of grifters. This is all about, if you want to understand what Donald Trump is all about, it's about himself, his family, and his money. And not even in that order. It's about him and his money. And if you understand that and you get your mind wrapped around that, you know why he says what he says. This is the same man that says we shouldn't allow mail-in voting. You know why? Because Democrats are more likely to be able to vote when it's an easier way to vote, right? He even said this, and the reporter asked him, the reporter said, hey, you know what, Mr. Trump, I know you're against voting by mail. He had just said it. He said, yeah, I'm against voting by mail. He said, but you voted by mail in the last election in Florida. He said, well, that's different. That's me. That's different. I was out of town. I mean, that's what he said.
Right.
And if you are anybody who cares about democracy, are you okay with that? Our Supreme Court, I hope it doesn't get changed by November.
But here's the thing.
Our Supreme that in Wisconsin, they had to allow people to vote and had to keep the polls open. Now, if we still have this problem coming up in November at the presidential election, watch the Supreme Court switch up on us and say, we got to shut the vote down.
But here's the hypocrisy even in that with the Supreme Court of saying that they needed to go to the polls. The Supreme Court made that decision from a remote location. They weren't even in their office when they made that decision. So that's the hypocrisy there. The same senators that voted against paid sick leave, once they were diagnosed with the coronavirus, they were sitting at home basically on paid sick leave. The hypocrisy is amazing in this country. It's like, are you kidding me? All of the things that you vote against, when it's for the people, there's a problem. But when it's for you, it's fine. I mean, they've been getting different brands of benefiting from socialist programs this entire time. But when it comes to other people being able to benefit from social programs, there's a problem.
Well, let me ask you this, Candice. Can you find a way to get tested right now? None of us can, right? But every senator is getting mark my words, he doesn't want everybody in that room has been tested for COVID-19. If you go somewhere right now in certain places around the federal government buildings or in the White House, they have these thermometers. They point towards you and see if you even have a temperature. They are doing tests for everybody who's in contact with the president. And he says he won't wear a mask. Well, of course he doesn't have to wear a mask because he knows everybody around him has been tested. But we can't get tested. The guy from Texas, the senator from Texas, Mitt Romney and others, they've been getting tested, but we can't get tested. Have you heard from our buddy in Kentucky? Where's he at? He's on the ground now with coronavirus. We haven't heard anything from these people, but at least they were able to get tested and know for sure what they have. I don't know anywhere to go get a test right now. Can I show up at the hospital where they really give me a test? Do I even want to go to the hospital? This is the craziness of it all. And they have different rules for themselves as opposed to what we should follow as regular U.S. citizens.
I want to go back to an earlier point. I want to go back to an earlier point, Mike, that you were alluding to, and Candice, maybe you've run across this information as well. I saw a news flash which maintained that the CIA had reported of a coming pandemic as far back as November of last year.
Yes,
November.
Yeah.
Yes,
you guys heard about that?
Yeah, I've heard that they've known since November. Yes.
He got briefings in November.
Well, I'm sorry, say what now?
President Trump had briefings in November, but on record on January 3rd, President Trump on January 3rd talked about what was happening in China and that we had heard about it. So he knew about this virus. Now he keeps saying nobody could have expected it, but he's been getting briefings about what's happening, what we can face since November. There is a memo right now by Peter Navarro. Right? Peter Navarro is one of his aides.
Absolutely.
He laid out everything that we're facing now. He laid that out to President Trump in his memo on January 3rd. So if nothing else, if he wants to lie about November, that's one thing. But on January 3rd, and after January 3rd,
I'm holding him to November, Mike. Mike,
yeah.
I'm holding him to November, man. Come on. The U.S. intelligence system is global. It's a global network. They knew.
Well, of course they knew, but I'm gonna use the Aaron meter. I'm gonna use the Aaron meter. I'm gonna go by the facts. One fact that we do know is that his
November is factual too.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I won't disagree with you. But he's got chief of staff. He's got people that do this every day. This is their job. And he knows about this stuff, but he acts like he doesn't, so he can lie to the American people.
Absolutely. And the question is why, Mike? Right? Why?
Right.
Why would he do this?
This is the thing, though. This is the thing that's the absolute killer, and how much he feels like the American people don't have common sense. Because my thing is this. Okay, so one of two things need to happen. Either you are grossly incompetent or the people are grossly incompetent around you. And if that is the case, why have you not gotten rid of all these people who are doing you so wrong? And everybody's just, I'm really confused of how is everyone always in the wrong and everyone is the problem. You are the leader.
Well, you know he's got the best people, Candace. He hires the best people. That's all he does. That's what he says.
He hires the best people. They're the best people until they disagree with him. And then once they disagree with him, then all of a sudden they were the worst and they were never any good at their job. And, you know, you try to give them a chance. It's slander when something doesn't fall in line with what he wants.
And it shows you another part of politics that we haven't learned as, well, I'm going to speak for myself, everybody, me and Candace, except for Minister Vic, because we don't know if he's a Democrat or not. But we have got a trip. I'm independent. And you want to talk about speaking your point about why and how. It's about power. One thing he has learned is how to wield his power and swing it around like a whirling helicopter blade. And anybody who steps outside will get their head chopped off. Not by just him, by the rest of his sycophants who want to keep talking this crazy nonsense. And I mean, when you think about, here's a man who says 60,000 deaths is okay. The U.S. government. I mean, think about it. Imagine President Obama saying the U.S. government, the federal government, is a backup. I mean, can you imagine that?
But you know what this is showing, Mike? Also, this is showing a certain political ideology known as states' rights. Right? I mean, that is a prevailing viewpoint that exists within the GOP. That's and by doing that, what he's doing is, as we all know, he's playing to his base. That's what he's doing. He's playing to his base by saying that the federal government is his backup and that these states are the first line of business. That's really what he's doing.
Yeah, but I don't have a way to be able to get a national briefing every morning if I'm a governor of Michigan. So I don't know what we're facing as a federal government.
True. So I agree.
Right. Yeah. So how is Governor Whitmer or that lady from Michigan or Gavin Newsom from California or Cuomo from New York? They're not getting these national briefings every morning that he's getting. They don't know the whole nine of it. Although we got enough understanding to figure where we should go with this, but this president has all this information at his fingertips. He says, "No, you handle it yourself. You shouldn't know." Are you kidding me?
He's playing to his base by doing that, because I've heard certain supporters saying that this is the United States of America. This is not China. This is not Russia. This is America. I mean, that's what I'm hearing people saying, and that's who he's playing to. When he says stuff like that, he does things like that.
Well, I guess he's got base members here in Michigan, and if they continue to go that way, then we're going to have a problem. I just want to encourage everybody, when you see this stuff, you know what's going on now. You got to get out and vote now. I don't care what happens.
Oh, absolutely.
In Milwaukee, man. In Milwaukee, they went from 180 polling places down to 5.
Yep, absolutely.
And those people still stood in line. I'll give them that much. And I don't care what happens in November. I'll put on my mask, a rubber ducky suit, and everything. And you know, I'll bring out my old military MOP 3, MOP level 5. I'll be on MOP level 5 mask, and I'll get out there and I will vote. Because this man is detrimental to what we know as Americans. I'm a red-blooded American.
Yeah.
Mr. Vic, Candice, look, we're Americans.
Yes,
we sit here and let somebody destroy what our ancestors have built. That's crazy. We've sacrificed too much. Particularly as an African American, I like to tell people this: nobody since the Native American has suffered more to prove their worth to this country than Black people.
Mm-hmm.
We've went through slavery. We fought for every right that we have. Mm-hmm. Every one of them, and we're still fighting for it. We are Americans through and through, and I'm going to protect what Grandma built, what she marched for. I'm going to protect what great grandma did and what she fought for, dealing with lynchings and things like that. Absolutely. If you don't get out and vote, you're not protecting that. You're not protecting the legacy that of the people who came before you. You're just not doing that as Americans. That's an American thing to do.
We've got 10 minutes.
And Mike, what just happened in Wisconsin, Candice and Mike, is a possible, and I hope not, but it's a possible foreshadowing of what lies ahead come November. If we need to deal with this now, to be honest with you, Candice. What do you think?
So, absolutely. What happened in Wisconsin was ridiculous. What's going on here in Michigan, I can tell you, is that there's an executive order in place that all except for maybe one polling location will be open in Michigan. And so a lot of the places that had elections going on in May, Governor Whitmer did ask if they could postpone them until August. For the most part, people were able to postpone whatever election, but the elections around school issues, because they had to hurry up and get those done before the summer, they were not able to postpone them. So that's going to be what's on a lot of ballots here in Michigan in the month of May. And even then, the polling locations, most Michiganders will have to vote by mail. Most of them absentee ballot. Even those who are not registered to vote yet, you have until I think April 20th. Don't quote me on that, but sometime this month is your deadline cutoff to register to vote. Whoa. Because I mean, you know, we have the new law here in Michigan where you can do same-day voting. The same day that you register, you can vote. However, because of the pandemic, it's different now.
Right.
So you're going to have to hurry up and register because the election is in May. And for people who have absentee ballots and they forget to turn them in before the election day, because there will be a polling location open, at least one polling location everywhere that you need to vote, you will be able to go drop your ballot off at that polling location. But for the most part here in Michigan, we are going to be relying heavily on absentee ballot and absentee ballots to vote. And another thing,
how do we obtain those though, Candice? How do we obtain those though?
So a lot of them are being sent in the mail, have been sent in the mail. If you don't have one, go to michigan.gov and you'll be able to navigate through that site to see if you can go ahead and request one, or you can call your county clerk's office or your city clerk's office and let them know, hey, I need you to send me an absentee ballot in the mail. Well, another thing that the Secretary of State here in Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, is asking is for younger people to become poll workers or go help at the city clerk's office.
Right.
Here, a lot of the people that are poll workers and volunteer around that time are some of the elderly. And obviously, they are not willing to come out in May, and that's very understandable because they are being hit by the virus at a disproportionate rate as well. And so in order to protect themselves, Secretary Jocelyn Benson is asking that we get some younger workers out here now to kind of help in the city clerk's office and at the limited polling sites that will be open.
Well, we're going to all need a job then, so they might have to hire me by
Michigan.gov, you say, and obtain this information about absentee ballots?
Michigan.gov for that Secretary Jocelyn Benson's release. But then also, if you want to get a ballot or an absentee ballot, call your city clerk's office or your county clerk's office. Either way, they will be able to get you an absentee ballot application. Start with your city clerk's office.
Okay. That's good information right there.
Mm-hmm.
Great information. And that's what we're facing now. I think we need to pay poll workers more in Wisconsin.
So what do you think, though, Candice? Do you think that we're going to end up possibly voting per the national presidential election via mail? What do you think? Our
You
options
mean
are
in
easy.
November?
Yeah.
I am hoping and praying and wishing that by November this is done. That by November we are able to do. I know, Mike. I know, but I'm still gonna pray. I'm still gonna pray. And you can't tell me. Look, Vic, you can't tell me that on Good Friday. I'm still praying.
Okay. Listen. I'm praying with you, sister. But let me say this: we have to do the work.
His volume is muted.
And we've been talking about these same type of things since last year. With this Senate that we have, let me say this: even in Michigan, with the Republican legislature, who our governor has to fight just to get roads done. They won't give money to the poll workers. Listen, poll workers should, I mean, you're talking about one day or a couple of days. They should be paid $30 an hour for that.
Speaking of which, and Vic, I'm not sure why you can't hear Mike because I can hear him. But speaking of which, and I want to cut in here and say this really quickly. Detroit, their city workers, they'll be getting $800 a month for hazard pay. The people who have to work with the public. That's 6 departments and 14 unions. And they're going to actually give more information about that Monday. Mayor Duggan is. That's actually breaking news. I just saw that come in. So, and we're at the 5-minute mark as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's some good breaking news out of Detroit. So we'll look to see information on that on Monday.
Listen, I see Walmart workers. They need to be getting some hazard pay. I mean, people that have to stay open. And if you're working at a drugstore or something like that, these people should be getting extra money.
Everybody that is considered essential at this point absolutely should be compensated fairly for that. I don't think keeping them at the same pay that they were receiving before this pandemic started is fair to them. I definitely agree that they should be receiving more pay.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me, Brother Vic?
I can hear you now. Yep, I can hear you now. Yeah. But folks, what about as we're about to close in a couple of minutes here? What about the losses, man? We've had some great losses, man. Some people have passed from this area and nationwide, man.
So Leslie Connor, Ruben Burks. Leslie Connor, Ruben Burks, Pastor Jones. So many people, man.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of the things, and Governor Whitmer has actually lowered the flags today in honor of the lives that we've lost here in Michigan. She's lowered the flags. But then also one of the things that they're doing, and it's so funny because Mike and I were doing this as well, is they have begun doing some sort of videoing so that when we look back on this virus 20 years from now, that we have people's stories of what's happening. So I'm happy to hear that they've been doing that. But Mike and I actually already started that process of how is this virus affecting everyone. So it's good to see that more people are coming in with that. And so we'll have these stories in the future so that we'll be able to look back. I mean, whether we like it or not, right now we are living history. And we are a part of this history and we all have stories. And I think it's going to be really important and interesting, especially in the city of Flint, to figure out how did you all manage or make your way through a pandemic, a public health crisis with a virus when you already had a public health crisis that you were 6 years deep into water. All of that is going to be important.
Absolutely.
Well, when Mr. Vic, can you speak to the Giants and of the cloth that we've lost here recently?
Well, I know that, there were at least 3 area ministers that had passed as a result of attending possibly a conference that took place, I believe, in the Detroit area, and they came back to the Flint area, and unfortunately, we lost those. So anytime you lose men and women of the cloth, it affects the faith community, and it affects scores and scores of persons. Our hearts and our prayers sincerely go out to every family, every congregation, all the loved ones, friends, and well-wishers who are really praying for those persons of the cloth that we have lost recently. And also, Mike, you could speak to this in terms of Ruben Burks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the critical role that he's played in the labor movement locally and nationally.
Reuben Burks, national. He was a director, vice president, General Motors. Here's a man who was a trailblazer as an African American, as a man in general, as an American. And to lose him, my significant other they was working together on planning a dinner for Reuben Burks. They do this every year, the Reuben Burks dinner. There's a hall named after local 598, the truck plant is named after Reuben Burks. He is a giant in this community, and for us to lose him to this is terrible. Yeah,
and absolutely. I want to say that Mr. Burks, in addition to all of the other people that we've lost, will be deeply, deeply missed. Unfortunately, we are out of time here. So I do want to thank you, Mike, for this is a history show for us, because this is the first time in history that the three of us have actually been on the screen at the same time.
Yeah. Me and Minister Vic ain't talking over each other. We ain't screaming and hollering yet.
Everybody made it out. So I want to thank you both for joining us again this week. I want to thank everyone that tuned in to Whose Opinion Is It Anyway with Candice
and Victor
and special guest Michael Harris.
the troublemaker. Go ahead.
We want to invite you to tune in again at 6 p.m. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Have a good evening and stay safe.